I never considered myself someone easily rattled. If anything, I'd always been the level-headed one, the calm presence when others let their imaginations run wild. My neighborhood had been my home for over a decade, a stretch of sleepy suburban streets where every face was familiar and every day moved along a predictable, peaceful rhythm. We had our morning routines, waving at each other from driveways, sharing brief conversations as we grabbed the morning paper, and sometimes gathering for casual weekend barbecues. It was a place where nothing truly unexpected ever happened. That was true, at least, until our new neighbor arrived. His name was Peter. He was a man in his mid-40s, with thinning brown hair and an average, forgettable build. The house he moved into had been empty for about 6 months, a lonely fixture on the block that everyone had grown used to ignoring. When I first spotted him, it was a lazy Friday afternoon, the kind where time seemed to drag its feet. I watched from my front porch as he unloaded boxes from a battered moving truck. At first glance, Peter seemed ordinary, perhaps a little reserved, but that wasn't unusual. Moving is stressful. People need time to adjust. I reminded myself of that as I noted his aloofness, the way he avoided any real interaction with the other neighbors. We were all friendly enough, and usually newcomers would be overwhelmed by offers of help, invitations for coffee, that sort of thing. But Peter kept to himself. Something about him nagged at me from the very beginning, though. It wasn't anything obvious, just a faint unease that I tried to ignore. People can seem strange when you don't know them, I told myself. It was probably nothing, but as the days slipped by, my discomfort grew harder to dismiss. Peter didn't introduce himself to anyone. He never waved, never smiled. Whenever we happened to cross paths, which was rare, he would lower his head, almost as if he was embarrassed to have been seen. At night, his house remained shrouded in darkness. No flickering television screens, no laughter, no music, just an eerie, vacant silence that seemed almost unnatural. About a week after he moved in, something happened that shattered any illusions of normalcy. It was close to midnight, and I had just finished watching a late-night movie. I was about to head upstairs when I heard it. A faint, muffled sound coming from across the street. I stood still, straining my ears. There it was, again low, steady murmuring, almost like someone talking to themselves. I moved closer to my window, peering out across the street. Peter's house was bathed in shadows, save for a faint light flickering from an upstairs room. I couldn't make out any clear words, but the sound had a steady, rhythmic cadence that unsettled me. I told myself it was none of my business. Maybe he was on the phone. Maybe he was listening to some late-night radio show. I pulled the blanket tighter around myself and went to bed, pushing the unease aside. The next night, the sounds returned, only this time, they were different. Louder, clearer. It wasn't a conversation anymore. It was chanting, the words repeated in a pattern, over and over, in a language I didn't recognize. There was a deep, guttural quality to it that raised goosebumps along my arms. I lay awake, listening, my heart hammering in my chest. Again, light seeped from Peter's upstairs window, casting a sickly yellow glow against the black sky. Something about it felt deeply wrong. Still, I fought against my instincts, convincing myself that everyone has their quirks. Maybe he was some eccentric loner, harmless in his oddness. Maybe. But that reassurance crumbled on the third night. That night, the chanting was louder still, vibrating through the heavy night air. I could feel it, low and rumbling, rattling the windows. I couldn't ignore it anymore. My curiosity and something deeper, a gnawing fear drove me to get a closer look. Throwing on a hoodie and sneakers, I crept out into the cool night. The street was deserted, silent, except for that ominous chanting, growing louder as I crossed the road. Peter's house loomed before me, its windows glowing faintly. Shadows moved behind the curtains, strange, disjointed shapes that didn't match any normal human movement. I kept low, staying in the cover of the darkness as I approached one of the side windows. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I crouched beneath the sill. Then, carefully, slowly, I lifted my head to peek inside. What I saw chilled me to the bone. Peter was standing in the center of a room, surrounded by a ring of strange symbols drawn on the floor with what looked like blackened ash. Dozens of candles flickered around him, casting long, twitching shadows on the walls. His hands moved in deliberate, ritualistic patterns through the air, tracing symbols that hurt my eyes to watch. His mouth worked rapidly, spilling out that same dark, guttural language, louder and faster now. But Peter wasn't alone. Just in front of him, something was materializing, a figure, tall and grotesquely thin, its limbs impossibly long and spindly. Its skin, if it could be called, that was a void, absorbing every flicker of candlelight. Where a face should have been, there was only emptiness, a gaping, featureless void. My breath caught. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to get away, but I was frozen in place, rooted by terror. I clutched the window frame so tightly my fingers ached, unable to tear my gaze away from the horror unfolding inside. The creature shifted, flickering in and out of solidity, like smoke fighting against form. It leaned toward Peter, extending long fingers that ended in dagger-like claws. A guttural growl, deep and raw, rumbled through the room, vibrating the window glass beneath my hands. The candles flared violently, their flames reaching upward as if in a desperate, final scream, and then, all at once, every light went out. The world plunged into a suffocating darkness. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet, scrambling to get away. The chanting had stopped. The night was deathly silent. Somehow, the silence was even worse. I ran. I sprinted across the street, not daring to look behind me. My hands fumbled at the locks, slamming the door, bolting it, checking every window twice. My lungs burned. My heart slammed against my ribs. But it wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't enough. For the next few days, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it had been a nightmare. But deep down, I knew better. Every time I walked past Peter's house, I felt it, that heavy, oppressive presence watching me, following me with unseen eyes. Peter himself was nowhere to be seen. The house seemed dead, yet somehow more alive than ever, pulsing with something foul just beneath the surface. The chanting stopped, but something worse took its place, a suffocating silence that seemed to seep into my own home. At night, as I lay in bed, I began to hear it, the faintest whispering, not from outside, from within my own walls. Sometimes it was a low murmur, barely audible. Other times it was a scratchy rasp, like fingernails dragging across drywall. Always it was there, whispering in that same dark language I could not understand. I tried everything: music, earplugs, sleeping pills. Nothing could drown it out. The more I tried to ignore it, the louder it seemed to become. I started sleeping with the lights on, clutching a baseball bat like it would somehow protect me. Then one night, I woke to find my bedroom door open. I knew I had closed it. The whispers were louder now, circling me, filling the room with their awful resonance. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. And in the corner of my vision, just beyond the glow of the bedside lamp, I saw it, a tall, shadowy figure, limbs twisted and wrong, standing perfectly still. It was here. It had crossed over. I don't remember falling asleep. Maybe I never did. Maybe I only passed out from fear. But when morning came, the figure was gone. For a time, I convinced myself it was over, but it wasn't. Each night, it returns. Sometimes it stands in the corner. Sometimes it's closer. Sometimes I feel its breath on my face, hear the whisper of its claws brushing against my sheets. I don't think it's going to leave, and I don't think it ever intended to. Peter? He's still across the street. His windows stay dark now. I haven't seen him since that night. Part of me wonders if Peter ever truly lived there at Allah, if he was just the first door the thing walked through. I know it's only a matter of time before it stops waiting in the shadows. One night soon, it'll step out of the darkness completely. And when it does, there'll be nowhere left to run.